All right. So once again, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight for our January 2023, our first Living Well with Cancer of the year. And I want to thank Laura Peters, our guest speaker, for joining us tonight. And she is going to guide us through her presentation that is entitled Mindful Self-Compassion, an Essential Tool for Living Well with Cancer. So I will keep my eye on everyone and keep my eye on the chat. So if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I am going to turn it over to Laura.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's really been a pleasure working with Jennifer to build this program and get it out to you. I'm very grateful for my relationship with the Cancer Resource Center of the Finger Lakes for the last few years until COVID hit. As a singer-songwriter, a guitar player, and a singer, I was playing for the people in the walkathon near the waterfront and found that to be such a joy. And I'm just grateful we have this rich resource in our community for everybody. I don't know about all of you, and there's no requirement to have a cancer connection to be here tonight, but it runs in my family. This week, in my family network, there are 2 surgeries and 1 final session of chemo. So this is very alive in my family, in my life, and I'm thrilled to be able to offer some resources that have been very helpful to me as I've taught mindfulness the last 2 decades to keep my immune system strong and my spirits up. So I'm delighted to have the opportunity to connect with you tonight. I run a business called Good Earth Mindfulness, and I'll be speaking a little bit more about other tools I can offer you later in the program. As we settle in here, I will admit I have a bias toward live education. I've been teaching for a very long time, and I love the connection of being in a room together with other people. So I like to do whatever I can myself here to create the conditions where we can feel connected to each other. I really appreciate those of you who've made the choice to be on camera, although I totally respect if it's important to you to be off camera tonight, or if you don't want to be on a recording. Totally respect that. When I can see your face, it's a little bit easier to connect, but please don't hesitate to speak up later if you have a question or anything and you're off camera. I will just remind us all about yep, it looks like everybody's muted. That's so respectful. Thanks very much. And when we get to the Q&A, if you do have a question you haven't put in the chat, you are welcome to raise your physical hand, and then Jennifer can call on you and unmute, and then you can ask the question then. That's a nice way for us to have some interaction on a Zoom session. I'm thrilled to offer you tonight some research updates from the world of mindfulness research and practice that's been heavily researched for 20 years called the Mindful Self-Compassion practice. We'll do a question and answer session, and then I'll share a little bit about other resources that I can offer you, and we'll wrap up with a nature practice that you can kind of take away with you. So does anybody have any questions now before we get started? Okay. Before I move along, I also do want to thank Kim Pugliese and her team at the Cancer Resource Center of the Finger Lakes for the terrific work they do in the community and for this opportunity to share with you tonight. So before we dive into the research, I'd love to offer you a way to settle in and do a very brief practice together. It doesn't require any experience at all, and you're free to ignore it if it doesn't work for you. But I'm going to offer you some suggestions and see how that is. I'm already noticing something some people are doing that's very intuitive. Your bodies are telling you that you might want to wiggle a little bit, roll shoulders or twist, or maybe lift heels up and down, or there's, just a little bit of adjusting in order to settle in to the connection that we're having here. It's wonderful to listen to the body that way, and I'm very encouraging that people do that. Yeah, stretching's great, twisting, head tilting or rolling, whatever works for you. This is a very unique thing for your nervous system. Nervous systems are like snowflakes. There's no two alike. We've all been programmed by our own histories, and our nervous systems are loaded with all kinds of useful information. And we can learn how to listen. So that's really what mindfulness is in a nutshell. But to settle our minds for a moment, to shift gears from whatever it was that you were engaged with before 5:30 tonight, I'll offer the suggestion to bring awareness down to the soles of the feet. So noticing where the soles of the feet are resting. It looks like people are sitting, so I'm guessing that they're resting on a floor of some kind. You might have layers of clothing or shoes or slippers on. So noticing any sensations there on the soles of the feet, and sensations of heat or coolness, pressure, sensations of tingling or numbness, itching, aching, burning. And the idea here is like a scientific investigator with a clipboard, just noticing. And if a judgment arises, like, oh, I hate that, noticing that, but just being able to say, oh yeah, there's that judgment, and return the attention to the sensations, just the naked sensations there on the soles of the feet. Now we're just going to do a couple more minutes of this practice. And if at any time this begins to actually seem agitating rather than calming, there's something you can do about that, which is you can direct your attention, instead of taking it back down inside your body, you can direct your attention out into your room and pay attention to something that's appealing or pretty or attractive to you. Might be some flowers or a picture, something that you find pleasant. So that's kind of an exit door if this practice is starting to cause agitation. So this practice is called the contact points practice. We're drawing attention down to where the soles of the feet are making contact with the floor. And now, if you like, moving that attention to the other places where the body is making contact with the chair. So that would be, I'm imagining for you and for me, the backs of the legs and the seat, perhaps the lower back or perhaps the entire back. And in this practice, eyes can be opened or closed, whichever feels most supportive and comfortable for you. And that can also change. You might have them closed for a while and then open them. You might want to experiment with that and see what helps the mind to settle. So on the backs of the legs and the seat and the back, noticing any sensations of heat or coolness, pressure, perhaps sensations of clothing resting against the skin. Tingling, aching, itching, numbness, perhaps a sense of lightness or heaviness, or maybe not much sensation to speak of. And all of that's normal. And when the mind drifts away from this place that we're directing it, which it's wired to do, not a problem, helpful to notice where it landed. Maybe on an item for the to-do list, or a physical sensation somewhere else in the body, a thought, an emotion flashing up. And when you've noticed where the mind has landed, just allowing that distraction to release like a balloon floating up into the sky, just letting it go. And then gently returning focus to the contact points. where the body's making contact with the chair or the floor. And then one more set of contact points, if you like, allowing attention to shift to where the hands are resting. So they may be resting on the arms of a chair, perhaps on your thighs. Mine are resting on my thighs. Sometimes people like to hold them in the lap like this, cupped, or wherever they're comfortable for you. And noticing any sensations here of heat or coolness, pressure, tingling, aching, itching, burning, numbness, or not much sensation at all. And when the mind drifts away from those sensations, just noticing where it landed. And if you like, here at the end of this practice, just taking a moment to notice any sensations as the breath is flowing in and out of the body. This might be under the nose with the air current flowing under the nostrils, might be the diaphragm rising and falling, or the chest, could be the ribs expanding, or perhaps around the back of the body, noticing the body expanding and contracting. You might find another place where you're noticing the breath move in and out, but just tuning into any sensations. And we're not altering the way the body's breathing. It knows how to breathe. Just paying attention like a witness to the breath. All right, and as you're ready here, if your eyes are closed, you're welcome to open them. And ta-da, your first mindfulness practice of the night. So if anyone has a quick comment on what that was like for you tonight, any thoughts on what that was like, I'd be glad to have you unmute and just share that. People can have a really wide range of experiences here, and they're all welcome.
I could start. I had something nice with, I actually enjoyed that you had it be like a small area of the body. Like at first it was the soles of the feet and then the chair. And it's not, I think when I meditate, I'm like, okay, just think about my whole body, like just speak with my body. And it was different to have the smaller areas. And then when you were like, now if your awareness drifts somewhere else, which you were like, if that happens naturally, our brain is wired to do that, so it's okay. And where my brain went was just to another area of my body. So I like that. I really like that everything stayed, the awareness stayed within my body. And I feel like it's because you were like making it a smaller section to focus on. So yeah, it was really, so in that way, it was easier to stay present, like with my whole body in that meditation. So yeah, that's what my experience, a little bit of it. So it was nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate your sharing. And what Jasmine's describing is this capacity to bring attention inside and keep it there. And it's pretty obvious Jasmine's been at this a while. That's not something that necessarily happens right away for many people. So I want to just put that out there. This might be a very odd experience for you if it's your first time. Like, what the heck is she talking about? Bringing my attention to the soles of my feet. So I want to really make some room. If that was difficult or uncomfortable, that feedback's very welcome here. as well as something that seemed supportive and positive. Okay, well, I had you dive into the deep end of the pool here. And what I'd like to do now is step back a little bit and give you a definition of mindfulness. People have probably heard this term thrown around a lot, but it can have a lot of different meanings. So I'll get us going here. Okay, I'm going to need to, just for a second, fix where my mindfulness slides are. Yeah, here we go. There, okay. Now we can see the screen. That's the place I want to be. All righty. Great. All right, are you all able to see my screen now? Wonderful. Okay. So there we go. There's the title. There's my business name, Good Earth Mindfulness, and our sponsors. And in a nutshell, mindfulness is something that these wonderful canine friends of ours in the next slide are going to give us the secret to. The key to meditation is learning to stay. In a nutshell, it really is about being able to bring our awareness to what's right here and right now, which is why the breath is a very handy place to bring our awareness, but it doesn't have to be the breath. We can make other choices like the contact points. But mindfulness is the practice of bringing our awareness to this present moment, right here and now, and then releasing our judgments about that experience. And it takes like 10 seconds to say this. And people dedicate lifetimes to building greater and greater mastery over this practice, which can never be perfected. It's always a practice. So I actually love that about it, that, you know, you can be a first timer at it, or you can have been doing this for 80 years, and there's always room to grow. And there's always opportunity to learn every time we do it. So why do this? Well, very briefly, I learned how to teach meditation from Dr. John Kabat-Zinn. He was a microbiologist, PhD microbiologist by day, teaching yoga classes in church basements by night in the 70s. And he was working at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center and in interacting with doctors who said, we have patients with intractable chronic pain, and we just tell them they have to learn how to live with it. And a light bulb went on in his head, and he thought, maybe these practices that I'm studying and teaching, these yoga and meditation practices, possibly could be of some help to this community of people in chronic pain. So he had that idea. He took it to the University of Massachusetts Medical Center. They were, you know, open-minded enough to offer him a room in the basement. They had people in hospital beds coming down into the class and taking these classes from him. And it helped them. And that was the beginning of more than 40 years of academic research on the program that he's developed called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, or MBSR. Now, there are many, many wonderful practices of mindfulness meditation out there. So I'm not selling anything here. I'm explaining to you that this is the tradition I've studied, and this is the research base that has been most influential in the research in the United States the last 40 years. This particular program called MBSR. That's the acronym, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. So the screen I'm showing you now is a pretty easy snapshot to show you the exponential growth in the interest in mindfulness as an intervention for well-being. This is not just for cancer patients, although the research I'm going to share with you tonight mostly is about cancer patients. But the research base includes people who are taking mindfulness classes in jail, Congress and the British Parliament, the US Olympic rowing team, corporations, school systems. The entire school system of Louisville integrated mindfulness into their all levels of their education for young people as a research study for, I think it was 5 years. So it's kind of across the board where it's showing up, and certainly in hospitals and community centers and all kinds of wellness interventions for every conceivable kind of malady, mental and physical. So you can see that since 2010, really, we're seeing an exponential increase in the number of research studies being done. And it's always good when you learn about research outcomes to understand that each study has its own population of, participants, and that the more validation there is of the results, the more solid we can, the more solid the outcomes can be counted on. So when I share this information with you today, what I'm doing is I'm sharing some recent research studies, individual studies, and certainly research will be ongoing on those various topics. So I'd like to share with you just 3 of the more recent and I think relevant research studies on mindfulness benefits for people with cancer, or at least people dealing with the condition of anxiety. And I don't know about you, but in my life, with the people I love who've had cancer and my own, desire to not have it, anxiety comes with the package, and certainly having to live with lots of unknowns, especially if you've had a cancer diagnosis and you've had treatment, and then you're on that path of, wanting to stay well and wondering if it's going to come back. So learning to live with the unknown is one of the great, for me, it's been one of the great benefits of mindfulness practice. So the first research study I want to share with you here, and by the way, if I'm not covering all the details that you want in this explanation, and you're not able to ask a question you want in the Q&A, you're welcome to go to my website, goodearthmindfulness.com, and just ask for my notes on these studies, and I'd be glad to send them to you, and they'll have the links to the information online. So my main source for this information is a website called the American Mindfulness Research Association, and this is the organization that compiles the studies over all those years on mindfulness research. And these are studies that are published in juried academic journals. So the first one is some information about children in Iran hospitalized with cancer, and they all were dealing with anxiety and depression. It was a population of 40 young children and their families, and they were taught a particular form of this program. Mindfulness-based stress reduction has really solid roots in, for decades. It's been taught in a very particular way, and people who are experts in their fields have taken that program and modified it to be useful in other environments. So, for example, the psychologists have built mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT. That's probably the most famous mindfulness-based program outside of MBSR. And in this study, they taught a special version of it for children. So it was called MBCT-C for short. So the kids got this in their hospital. And the outcome of this study, the outcome of teaching these kids the MBCT-C was that it significantly improved their symptoms of anxiety, depression, and somatization, which is when challenging emotions lodge in the body as symptoms. And also it helped them with impairments of attention, like it helped them focus better compared to just getting treatment as usual. And these benefits were sustained for 2 months after intervention. So that's some news from the front from November of 2020. And then the second set of data I want to share with you, it's not a research study, but it was a lecture given by the Associate Director of Breast Cancer Survivorship at Massachusetts General Hospital Cancer Center in Boston. Her name is Lauren Winters, and she's an oncology nurse practitioner. She spoke at the Cures Educated Patient Breast Cancer Summit. And what she reported from her experience working with cancer patients there is that that many times, I mean, that the nature of our nervous systems is that, stress gets triggered in our unconscious, but we can trigger our relaxation response to calm it down. We can do that consciously. The thing is that it takes practice. So the benefits of regular mindfulness practice, as she has seen in the research, is here's a list, okay? It's a laundry list. It can strengthen parts of the brain responsible for decision-making, memory, awareness, and perception. It can benefit the cardiovascular and gastrointestinal systems and reduce inflammation, improve cell immunity, release tension, and improve mental health, including anxiety and sleep problems. And in general, mindfulness can strengthen our resilience, which is our capacity to recover from or easily adjust to misfortune or to change. So I thought she did a nice job of summarizing her own experience, seeing how the practice benefited people in her community. And I'd like to add my 2 cents to that, having taught mindfulness at Island Health and Fitness and to Kendall Retirement Community residents and staff. So that period of time is about 20 years worth of experience. I've also seen people lower blood pressure and reduce or even out their blood sugar levels, be able to get off of some of the medications that they were on. Have an experience of reduced chronic pain, partly because when you practice mindfulness, you're able to settle into the present moment. And a lot of times we contract around our pain. So whatever's hurting, our muscles tighten up and it hurts twice as much. And when we practice mindfulness, then we can often, the body can allow those muscles to relax and we can just be with what is right there. And that is what actually has a substantive decrease in the experience of chronic pain. So there are many different health conditions that, both mental and physical, that, that mindfulness can help with. And then a third study that I wanted to share with you, it's not specific to cancer patients. It was pretty recent, just in November. And it was this study was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association Psychiatry. It was a study led by Dr. Elizabeth Hoag, who is the director of the Anxiety Disorders Research Program at Georgetown University Medical Center. And their population of their study was 276 adults who were diagnosed with untreated anxiety, panic attacks, or social anxiety. And those people were divided into 2 separate groups. One group was receiving a daily dose of the medication called Lexapro, and the other group completed the 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction course. And that course as it was originally designed and is still taught, has a daily expectation of practicing mindfulness 45 minutes a day. And at the end of these 8 weeks, both groups completed a clinical survey indicating that both groups reported a 20% reduction in their symptoms. And then what was interesting is that at the 24-week mark after that study was done, 28% of the people who had practiced mindfulness were still doing it. And compared to 52% of the people in the Lexapro group who are still taking their Lexapro. So the researchers reflected on the fact that it takes practice to learn how to do mindfulness and to build it into your life, and that having a teacher in your life can be really helpful to keep you on track building that habit. Their interest is actually in doing more research to see how these two interventions can work together, how one can support the other. It is, as they expressed, there really aren't so many side effects for mindfulness practice, and there can be side effects for Lexapro. So that's a factor taken into consideration. The doctor who designed this study, Dr. Elizabeth Hogue, regularly prescribes Lexapro and sees it as a valuable intervention. So she was seeing meditation as a useful addition to the the array of options for people dealing with anxiety. So we might see more research studies here on how these two interventions might work together. And perhaps down the line, we might see insurance covering meditation as well as medication. So let's all keep our eyes open and our ears perked for the next word on this research. Okay. So with that research component out of the way, and I'm just going to take a second here to see if, no, I hope that my hand being raised doesn't bother anybody. It's just sitting there, not doing any harm. I'd love to change gears with you here and offer a little background information on the next practice I'd like to share with you. And it's called Mindful Self-Compassion. Mindful Self-Compassion is a practice that was designed by a professor named Dr. Kristen Neff at the University of Texas, Austin. And she has taught this practice to countless numbers of people all over the world. She's also trained thousands of people to teach it themselves. And in a way, it's come about from an awareness that American culture teaches us to be pretty hard on ourselves, pretty self-critical. And this can be a particular challenge, not just in daily life, but also when we are under a particular kind of stress, whether that's the business of managing our social relations under the pandemic conditions, or juggling work and family, or if we have a health issue, or if we have family members with health issues, or whatever else, stuff going on with your house, whatever stresses are coming at us. When we are wired to be self-critical, we tend to get down on ourselves just at the moment when we could really use a friend to be kind to ourselves. So this is a practice that teaches us how to be kind to ourselves. And I just want to open the door here that this can seem very foreign. If this is not something that was part of your work culture or your family culture growing up, this might almost seem like a foreign language. So if it feels that way to you, not a problem. I wanted to offer this image here and the cultural element behind it, because I think it's perfectly suited to this practice. Kintsugi is a Japanese practice used in ceramics. And what happens is if a ceramic piece is broken, it's repaired with gold. And then once it's repaired with gold, it's considered to be of higher value than before it was broken. I really love this concept as it pertains to human beings, because I think it's so easy for us to feel that like we're flawed if we have, fill in the blank, failed at something, or if we've had surgery and have scars, or if we've had very difficult emotional experiences and have scars. We can easily feel damaged, like we're damaged goods. And instead, this practice is one of the ways that over time, doing it over and over and over again until it almost becomes second nature, until we don't have to think about it anymore. It's a wonderful way of treating ourselves like we're more valuable for the ways that we have come through hard times, for the lessons we've learned, for the wrinkles that we have from our experience, our wisdom lines. I like to call them wisdom lines. So Dr. Kristin Neff has designed this 3-step practice. It's called Mindful Self-Compassion. And as I offer the messages, the idea is this is a guided meditation where I'll start you out, getting a little bit relaxed, and then you'll be able to offer loving wishes to yourself silently. And if you want to say them out loud and you're muted, you just go right ahead, whatever works best for you. And some of these mindfulness practices, there is, particular language that people stick to, but Dr. Neff, every time I've ever heard her talk about this, on TED Talks or on her website, she has tons of resources on her website, lots of videos that you can hear. Videos you can see and audios that you can listen to. Every time she says, make this language your own. If this language that I'm offering isn't quite right to you, tweak it, make it yours. So it's got 3 steps to it. So I'll go through those one at a time. But let's just shift gears here. We're in our heads for a while in academic land with the research. So I'll invite us to allow our attention to settle down to the soles of the feet. And again, if there's a moment during our practice or any time tonight that agitation starts to rise up, you always have the option to direct your attention to a place in your immediate environment that's appealing, that's pleasant. And just to take a look at that and let your attention settle on something outside of yourself. That tends to calm the nervous system. It can be a pleasant sight or a pleasant sound. But as you like, if you care to, allowing attention to settle down the soles of the feet, noticing any sensations there. Sensations of heat or coolness, pressure, tingling, itching, aching, burning, or not much sensation at all, and all of that's normal. Allowing that attention to expand to include other places the body's making contact with the chair, the backs of the legs, the seat, the lower back. Just noticing any sensations there. And if the peanut gallery of judgment starts, throwing out its judgments, this is good, this is bad, this is okay. That's all normal. That's how the mind works. Just noticing, okay, there's some judgment there, including judgments on the content of this class. That's how the mind works. Just willingness to release judgment for the moment and keep an open mind, greeting something new. Eyes can be open or closed, whatever just seems to suit you tonight to allow the mind to settle. And if you like now, noticing where the hands are making contact with the chair or the lap or one another, noticing any sensations in the hands. And you might want to keep your attention settled on the contact points. Or if you'd like to experiment with shifting attention to the sensations of breath flowing in and out of the body, just noticing as the body is breathing, not having to make any changes to the in-breath or the out-breath, but noticing where you might be aware of sensations of the breath flowing in and out. Maybe the diaphragm rising and falling, or the chest, the ribs expanding and contracting. Perhaps a sensation in the middle of the back, your throat, underneath the nose, maybe many other places you're noticing the breath. And if the mind's drifting off to a thought, a feeling, a sensation, a judgment, an item for the to-do list, something else that happened earlier today, something that's going to happen later today. I love to think of the image of mindfulness like, we can have a fishing rod and hurl that hook forward into our future with all of those, ruminations and anxiety, or we can use that fishing rod and toss it behind us and allow that hook to land in resentment or, anger or something unfinished in the past. Or we can just allow that line to drop down, straight down into a deep pool right in front of us, right here and right now. And that is actually, in some sense, the only moment we really have, right here and right now. All right. So just always remembering you have the option, if agitation arises, to open the eyes and find something pleasant in your environment. The invitation with this practice first is to actually bring to mind something that has been stressful for you. And if we're talking about a scale of 0 is no stress and 10 is max, we're not talking about bringing to mind a 10. We're talking about maybe a 5, something that's been aggravating, but not going to, raise your blood pressure to think about it too much right here and right now. So the invitation, bringing something to mind that's been stressful for you, whether it's a person or a situation. And as you are bringing that to mind, and if you're a visual person, even, bringing it into the mind's eye, allowing any sensations that accompany it to arise. And that could be a sense of the heart racing a little bit faster, or tension in the muscles, or wherever it is that stress can land in your body. Just noticing if any of those signs of stress are arising. So the first step of mindful self-compassion practice is mindful awareness, actually recognizing, like we would acknowledge a good friend who's going through a rough time, saying to ourselves, either silently or out loud if you like, yeah, this is hard. This is difficult. This is a tough one. Sometimes we have a habit of powering through things and not giving ourselves the moment to acknowledge what's actually going on. We can actually save ourselves some time if we acknowledge it in the moment, because usually it catches up with us eventually. So it can be actually more efficient to acknowledge right here and right now, like we would talk to a good friend. Yeah, this is hard. This is difficult, or whatever language works for you. And again, if the mind's drifting off, getting snagged on one of a number of options the mind likes to generate, not a problem. And just noticing where it landed and then drawing your awareness back to this sense of being a good friend to yourself. This is difficult. And then step 2 is tuning into our common humanity, the sense that this is actually part of the human condition. I'm not alone. Other people are going through this too. So the language that I find helpful is, I'm not alone. Others are going through this too. But you might find other language helpful to just recognize this experience is part of the human condition. It is. Suffering is part of the human condition, along with joy and delight and pleasure and serenity and comfort and ease. So letting ourselves know, yeah, we're not alone in this. We're in the boat together, we humans. And then just taking a moment here to notice if there's any response to these words that the body's offering. Perhaps could be more tension in the body, could be release of tension, could be change in the breathing, or any one of a number of physiological changes. It's just an opportunity here to notice. And then so our first step was mindful awareness, acknowledging to ourselves the way a good friend would, this is difficult, this is hard. And the second step is our common humanity. Yeah, I'm not alone. Other people are going through this too. So the third step is offering ourselves kindness. And this could show up in 1,000 different ways. For me, I like to say to myself, I'm here for you. The way that a good friend would say that, I'm here for you. We'll get through this together. We'll muddle through. I'm here for you. And you might have another way of being kind to yourself in this moment. Kristen likes to say to herself, she likes to say, may I be kind to myself in this moment. So it's kind of an opening, an invitation. And you might have another way of doing this. And sometimes people like to actually put their hand over their heart when they're doing this. And the physical sensation of warmth and comfort on the heart reaches our nervous system in a way that words don't, or that words might not. So if you like experimenting with that practice of putting the hand on the heart. And then we'll just take a moment here, once again. Now that we've gone through those 3 steps of mindful awareness and common humanity and kindness, just to check in and see how this is landing. What's going on in the mind? What's going on in the emotions? What's going on in the body? And there's no right or wrong to this. All right, so as you're ready here, if your eyes are closed, the invitation is to open them. And I would be glad to hear if there's anyone who'd like to briefly share what that was like for you. What it was like, what kind of thoughts came up, or emotions, or any body sensations you were kind of surprised or pleased by or not pleased by. All of that is worthy information. See if anybody wants to unmute or raise your hand and Jen can call on you, either way.
Amelia, I saw you unmuted. Did you want to share? And then we have Melinda with her hand raised.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if Laura could please make it so that we could see the other people's faces and take down is that possible?
I'd love to do that, Amelia. If I do that, I'm not able to get back to my slides tonight. There's
Oh, okay.
something going on.
Sorry.
No,
problem.
I'm very glad you asked, and I'm going to get rid of the screen as soon as I can.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then I guess my comment is I had done something really stupid earlier and I ended up getting injured, and it's my left great toe that is really like bothering me.
yes.
And this was a wonderful practice for me to realize, like, all people do foolish things and sometimes there's a consequence, and the whole world has done foolish things, and I just need to be kind to myself and say, it's okay, we'll get through this.
Oh, Amelia, thank you for that. I'm very sorry about your toe, but I really appreciate the teachable moment right there. It's a wonderful example, and we can scale that all the way up to doing things that are really heart-wrenching, things that we so are really agonizing over, right? And at the same time, we're not alone. Other people have done those things that, really weigh on our hearts or make us wish we sure hadn't done that. And then it can lighten the load. And the idea is this actually being kind to ourselves. Dr. Neff has 20 years of research to show the health benefits of that kind of weight lifting off our shoulders. And you can look on her website to see the documented physiological benefits of this kind of mental practice. So thank you.
I think my toe feels better.
Well, there we go. Okay. And honestly, everybody, I did not pay Amelia $5 to say this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. Melinda, your hand is up. Are you able to unmute?
I can unmute. Oh, good. My connection seemed to be more stable. Yeah, I had an interesting experience because I was hanging curtains in my bedroom, and needless to say, I went through a lot of different calculations about, when you hang curtains, like, is the drapery rod going on the inside or the outside? Is it going up above? And how long does it have to be? And I have 2 different windows, and I want them to be, how do you want them? Do you want them to look the same? And how high so anyway, so I engaged my husband in helping me too. The first one went really, really well because we hit a header. And so when we screwed in the screws, it went, and it looks beautiful, right? And then we switched now to the next window, and I measured it all very carefully. And the one went in really well, and the middle one just broke right through the drywall, even though, of course we used whatever. So, and then the next one also, so now at this point, I now have holes in the drywall. And I did see how I immediately wanted to blame my husband, even though the drywall would have been exactly the same for me as it was for him. And I could have punched those screws right through, right? I could see there's a tendency immediately to want to say that it's someone else's, like, to blame.
Yes, absolutely.
And when I switched and tried to be kind to myself, I have to say that I kind of found it difficult. And I think it's because, I feel very emotional, but, I grew up with 2 alcoholic parents, and there was a long time where they did not give me any comfort or anything. And generally speaking, when something goes wrong, I feel that I don't know what to do. I just I'm not kind to myself. I don't know what to say, really, because I lack a parenting skill. And then I feel overwhelmed. And of course, now I have holes in my wall, and I seem to just feel like I'm always going to have holes in the wall. But it was helpful. I mean, I feel like it was helpful to just see that that's my pattern. Instead of being able to maybe take some action, I got stuck. So it was it's very interesting. Kindness to myself is really difficult.
Yes, Melinda. I really appreciate your willingness to share that story. And boy, I can tell you, you're not alone. And it's a hallmark of growing up in an alcoholic or addicted family. The behaviors of attack and blame and criticize and judge, that is the program.
Right.
So you are not alone. And I really appreciate the insight you had to notice that's what mindfulness is. It's that awareness of noticing, I had the impulse to blame here. That's a big step in the right direction of being able to choose a response that's more supportive of your own self and the relationship with that other person. So bravo to you for that. And the thing about, being able to get out of being stuck, that, the first step to taking action is awareness. We need to start there, and then we can begin to open up an action plan and choose a direction. So I applaud you for having the insight that you did tonight, and for your willingness to feel the raw emotion of the grief of not having had the nurturing that would have allowed you to arrive at that curtain session with no impulse to blame, but just, oh, what's the next action here, right? That because there could be a moment of saying, oh, bummer, there's 2 holes in the wall. This is not the desired outcome. And then immediately, you know, your husband has a skill set, you have a skill set, put those great minds together. And what's the next step to fixing this? So mindfulness has been hugely instrumental in my own life in undoing the patterns of blame and self-judgment that are just like, why don't we just dig a hole down to the basement? You know, that stuff is really, really harmful to ourselves, both physically and mentally. So this practice sounds like it, you know, opened a little window to be able to recognize, to feel those feelings. Those are 2 different steps, the awareness and then the emotion. A lot of us are still suppressing those emotions. And as long as the lid's down on that, it's hard to move forward. So bravo to be able to do 2 of those things at the same time. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Do we have one last comment before we move on to the next step? Anybody else? Are we good?
I don't see anybody.
Okay, very good. Well, that was rich sharing. So thank you to the 2 of you. And I'll just put out there on the table. I've taught this practice to people who had a very strong negative reaction because they grew up in a family culture that was so critical and harsh that it was extremely uncomfortable to offer these wishes to themselves, to just offer kindness. And that's not uncommon. It's you know, prevalent in our culture, and people can work their way into this practice one little bit at a time. They don't have to take all 3 steps. They can just start with, this is hard, you know, and see how that works over time. So I wanted to offer that as a suggestion. Well, we have some time here. I love this. I love this slide. This idea of whispering into somebody's ear. This is the Q&A session. This is the opportunity to ask a question that might have come up any earlier in the session tonight. Anything about the original contact points practice that we did, or if you have a comment on another practice that's helped you, comments or questions about the research, or anything that's come up about this particular mindful self-compassion practice. So the door is open for questions and comments.
I have a question.
Great.
So you mentioned earlier that the mindfulness-based stress reduction program in that research experiment had people doing it 45 minutes a day. And that sort of scares me off when I hear it, because I know most days that won't happen. Is there kind of a more reasonable expectation for effectiveness?
I'm so glad you asked that question, Leslie. It's a very active, dynamic question in mindfulness these days. I would say maybe the last 10 to 15 years, there have been a lot of different mindfulness programs around developing. There are apps like Headspace and Calm, and lots of other classes that you can access online. And I'll mention the ones that I offer myself. So the research on the length of time people need to practice in order to get benefit, the jury's out. There's no specific answer to that. It's very individual. What does seem to be the case, though, is that people can benefit from very short periods of practice. We're talking 2 to 5 minutes. People can benefit from very short periods of practice. The key is to do it on a pretty frequent basis. And we are not talking about a rigid every single day, you know, kind of practice. It's wonderful to aim for, 4, 5, 6 days a week, 7 days. If it feels so good to you, it's like your morning coffee. That's how it is for me now after practicing for 30 years. I know I can feel it if I don't have it, just the way people feel it if they don't have their caffeine in the morning. So I'm so glad you asked the question and put it on the table so that I can encourage people to look for a way of learning this that works for you, and to calibrate your own practice to what fits into your life. I've been, teaching this for 20 years, and the hardest thing for people is to build a new habit, is just to build it into their life. And that's why I encourage people to tie mindfulness practice to something that's already rock solid in the schedule, like brushing your teeth or a transition between work and home, if you still have one of those, that kind of thing. So it's very much the case that people can benefit from short periods of practice, and they don't have to happen every day. It's just a matter of doing it often enough that the nervous system gets conditioned to recognize, I have the capacity to engage what we call the rest and digest part of the nervous system, or the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the part that allows the heart rate to go down, the blood pressure to go down, the blood to return back into the extremities of the hands and the feet. I'm sorry, no, the other way around. It allows for the blood to return to the internal organs, the digestion, and the immune system. And 80% of the immune system lives in the gut. So very important for the blood to be able to return to the internal organs. Long answer to a short question. Did that answer your question? Okay, great. Other questions?
We did have a question just come into the chat. So it says, often I find, for example, doing yoga is better with others than alone. I would think the same thing would be the case for me with mindfulness, / meditation. Are there good places to practice with others that you could recommend?
That's a wonderful question. And I'd like to kind of answer that in two different ways. And I will, I acknowledge that I'm a mindfulness teacher, and I'm offering classes in the community. So that is a resource. I'll show you a couple more slides on the screen. But I'll say more about that. But I also just want to open the door wide to say there's such an array of resources out there, and the important thing in my mind is that you find a good fit for yourself. If you're a person who learns well from technology like an app, that might be a place for you to start. If you're a person who knows you need a teacher, you could look in the local area or online. There's a wonderful teacher named Anna Salamone who teaches the full 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction class. And she has a website that you can take a look at. I know a lot of people who've taken that class and really benefited from it. I've taught that MBSR class at Island Health and Fitness years ago, a few times, and I love it. But it's what I'm offering now is a 6-week class of 90-minute sessions, whereas the MBSR class is 8 weeks of 2.5 hours when it's taught in the traditional way. Other people in town have modified that program and taught it. I'm not seeing that they're offering it right now. And then there are just all kinds of people teaching online. It really depends on, if you have a specific question about the way that you like to learn, I'd love for you to reach out to me through my website, goodearthmindfulness.com, and let me know that, and maybe I can direct you to some specific resources, because the world of mindfulness has exploded. As you could see from those research studies, there are just so many programs out there, so many online classes, and it's really about finding a good fit for you. So great question. Any other questions?
Laura, could you confirm the name, Anna's name?
Sure.
Spell it and I
Her,
can say it.
Anna, it's Anna, and then the last name is Salamone, S-A-L-A-M as in Mary, O-N as in Nancy, E. And she works in this area. She also, yeah, she's had a lot of she's offered a number of those sessions over the years. All right. So any other questions that might come up, please don't hesitate to, head off to my website and goodearthmindfulness.com and pop an email, and I'll be glad to get back to you. To wrap up here, I want to let you know how I like to teach mindfulness. I have deep respect for the tradition of MBSR, and I'm so glad that that's my background. And I've enriched that curriculum with some insights from neuroscience that have to do with how the body, how the nervous system is affected by trauma. And I think COVID has inflicted a lot of trauma on many people. And then there's trauma from other sources like war or childhood. So I enrich my classes with those neuroscience insights, and also with insights from our relationship to nature. The way I look at mindfulness is well, actually the way I look at human experiences, we've been around for about 2 million years as humans. The plants and animals have been around for something like 350 million years, according to scientists, and the planet has been around for 4.5 billion years. So there's just, in my view, an enormous amount of wisdom in the way nature operates that could help humans sustain our lives and enrich our lives here and now. So I draw on those insights in the way that I teach mindfulness. And I'll be tying that in at the end in our last practice. So my website here, goodearthmindfulness.com, gives you a little more information about that. And I want to offer you 2 suggestions for if you want to widen your own toolkit for practicing mindfulness through my classes. If what's gone on tonight is a good fit for you. I'm teaching a 6-week class. I taught this class live in the fall, and I'm teaching it virtually now, and I'll go back to teaching it live in the spring. I think I'll go back and forth like that, because some people are preferring one or the other of those formats. So this class is a 6-week class. It's 90 minutes, 5:30 to 7, just like tonight. Starts next Tuesday nights through the end of February. And you can get more information about that class at goodearthmindfulness.com. And then the other option I can offer you is I offer a midweek mindfulness nature break, which is a virtual drop-in session. You don't have to sign up. Well, you have to register for it the very first time, and then you can use the link and keep coming back. It's Wednesdays, noon to 12:30. And since you've come to this session, I don't offer that on my website. It's something I offer to people I've had some connection with. So you're most welcome to come anytime. What you'd need to do then is email me through my website, and I would send you the information for the link. So now I would like to stop my share and get us back so we can all see each other again for the last practice. It's great to see your faces again. All right. Thank you. I know we're not quite done yet, but I do want to thank you for taking 90 minutes of your time to gather here in this lovely community of people who are looking to find a little more peace and comfort in life. It's wonderful to be with you tonight. So thank you, Melissa. You're very welcome. Thanks for the message. So for our last practice here, this is an opportunity to tune into a connection that you've had in nature. So once again, just very briefly here, allowing attention to settle down into the soles of the feet, And then the other places, the body's making contact with the chair or the floor, and the hands. This is a way of grounding. It's pretty handy to do this, even if you're, just trying to calm yourself in a daily situations, contact points exercise. And eyes open or closed as you like. And now bringing to mind, and if you have a visual imagination, then, bringing it into your mind's eye, bringing to mind a tree that you love. It might be from childhood, it might be from your yard right now, or maybe it's a stand of trees or a forest or, a grouping of trees, but to bring to mind a tree or some trees that you have a special connection with. And if something doesn't come immediately, then you might just choose one that that you know of in your yard, or a tree of someone that you, in a public place that you really admired. And allowing yourself here in your mind's eye, or if you don't see in your mind, then just thinking about it, allowing yourself to sense those roots of the tree as they're sinking down. And we actually know through science now that trees communicate with each other through underground mycorrhizal fungal networks. They communicate and support one another. So just sensing how those roots are sinking down into the ground, forming a network of connection. And then allowing yourself to notice the trunk of the tree, if that's the shape of your tree, and branches. Noticing how the tree is relating to the earth and the sky. Your tree might be very small, it might be just a sapling, or it might be a mighty oak. But it's still offering us oxygen in exchange for carbon dioxide, if it's still alive. It's still a part of this living, breathing community, just as we are. And just as our community of 13 here, or I'm sorry, let's see, 12 of us now on the Zoom screen, our little community. And knowing that you can return to this image of the tree at any time if you want a sense of rootedness and connection, the sense that we really are never alone on this planet. We're connected. We're connected to each other, and we're connected to other living beings. And the invitation here is to do this again sometime. And if it's not a tree that you're really attracted to, then choosing another nature element. Maybe it's just taking in the extraordinary pink sky we had in Ithaca tonight. But a momentary pause in your day, 30 seconds to a minute, to soak it in. That too can engage this rest and digest part of our nervous system. Very quick way to have a benefit. All right, so if your eyes are closed, an invitation to open them, and I'll just thank you very much for your attention tonight and your willingness to participate together, whether you've been silent or speaking. And once again, Jennifer, thank you so much for your organizing this event.
Thank you, Laura. What a great presentation. And thank you everyone for attending.